It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
And welcome to another episode of the Real Estate Breakfast, available on iHeartRadio every morning and on Spotify and Apple and wherever you get your podcast from. Hey, it's a Tuesday morning, the 8th day for November for 2022. And as mentioned yesterday, we were talking about the block and the auctions that took place on Sunday night. It was a night of highs and lows for the contestants, but what about the real estate agents who are charged with selling those properties? Well, coming up next, we're going to be talking with Ashlee and Natalie, two of the selling agents for one of the properties, and we'll find out whether that property sold. And also, we've highlighted the scamming that is taking place in the property market. You might remember a few months ago, the woman that lost over $700,000 when making a final payment to buy a house. And some of the hard numbers of this, the scamming, has been released to back up just how bad things are. Now, between January and September of this year, Australians lost over $424 million to scammers. That is a 90% increase in losses compared to the same period last year. But this is the really bad part. The ACCC believes that because of the massive underreporting, because only 13% of people are reporting the scams, the real figure for this year could go as high as $4 billion. And last year, investment scams took the largest hit. About $292 million was lost to investment scams, followed by, the good old dating and romancing scams at $29 million. So whatever you are doing, make sure that you are authenticating each and every transaction just to make it that much more difficult for somebody to try and scam you out of your hard-earned cash.
We talk with leading property commentators with analysis, predictions, forecasts, and what's trending every morning from 6:30. It's the Main Centre Forecast with PRD, selling smarter every day.
Around the country we go on this Tuesday morning, and in Sydney today expecting a possible shower, a high of 24 degrees. 27 is the forecast high in Melbourne, also expecting a possible afternoon shower. In Brisbane, some showers and expecting 25, and in Perth expecting possibly some morning showers and a high of 23 degrees.
It's your weekday real estate breakfast with news, interviews and predictions every morning on the Real Estate Podcast.
Well, it's time to go behind the curtain a little and take a look at one of the properties on the block with Ashlee, McKee and Natalie Fagan from Belle Property. And a very good morning to you girls. Welcome to the Real Estate Breakfast.
Thank you for having us, Craig.
Thank you.
Well, let's start at the very beginning, and that is, how did you come to be the listing agent with the property on the block?
So during week 3, the contestants had to visit a number of properties around the region for inspiration. And one of those properties is one that we actually sold in Spargo Creek. And the contestants, as they came through the house, obviously we got to meet them and have a chat, etc. throughout the day of filming. And at the end of that day, we actually had the contestants from House 1, House 2 and House 3 reach out to us and ask us to represent them.
Yeah, well, that is the way to sort of network, isn't it? I mean, that's the way of property. And talking of property, regarding the marketing of this, how much different was it for you guys in terms of it being a block house to market?
Yeah, look, of course, it's always going to be a bit different when you're working with a reality TV show that's shown to millions across Australia. And then you also work with your buyers that you have in our region as well as Melbourne. And Most of the buyers in our region are 80% from Melbourne, and they are either making it a permanent move or it's their second property. So we had to come up with a slightly different strategy, especially in the fact that when we were uploading photos, we could only do them week by week as rooms were revealed. So you are a little bit restricted. And then you were only given permission from 9 to show the entire property 2 weeks before auction day. So you can imagine when you're trying to run a 4-week campaign, it's quite challenging because you really want to show everyone the entire house and looking its best. So there was a few challenges from there, but we just had the stats come through that over 7 million people viewed our property on Domain.
Wow, 7 million. That's insane. And the advantage is, of course, that it is a TV reality show. So it's got this built-in eyeball factor, but that is not a guarantee that people in that $4 million price range is going to be watching this show. Is that a fair comment to make?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, what we found actually was that the majority of people that inquired actually said that they don't watch the show, or they might have seen something on social media and that sort of inspired them to give us a phone call. And obviously then that led into, qualifying buyers and taking them out there if they were truly interested. But it is interesting because the buyers in that price point usually, let's face it, there's a lot of property around Australia in that price point. It's, it's like that, what we call the medium range. But a lot of those buyers don't want to be on television. So the buyers that we did have coming through said that they were obviously looking to employ some of the buyers' advocates. Yeah, it's interesting because you create these relationships, but then they just sort of a little bit more hesitant about reaching out, I think, to be honest. So you just have to reassure them that essentially it's like a normal process and you don't have to be on TV if you don't want to.
And how important do you think it is, the position of the auction itself? Because if you look at house number 1 that won the competition, it was in number 1 position, and number 2, which was you guys and you sold, was number 2.
Yeah, look, there's always a strategy around an auction, obviously, and especially when it comes to the block, when you've got 5 similar yet unique properties being marketed on, literally one after the other. So there is a certain amount of strategy there, but also what we found this year that the buyer pool was much, much smaller than what it has been on previous block seasons. And our auctioneer that we use, David Wood, obviously has done the block 12 times, so nobody knew that better than he did. Really, when you've got a very large regional property, it's quite a different buyer pool, and then obviously the market is shifted. But what happened at house 5 was amazing, and obviously you just need 2 people to fall in love with it. But it was interesting because obviously Danny Wallace ended up purchasing house 5, then purchased ours, and then also purchased house 2. So out of the 3 houses that sold, he purchased all 3, which was just amazing.
Well, yeah, it was amazing. And if you take Danny out of the equation, things become a little bit more tricky. So you really do need a few more of those Danny Wallaces in the room.
Look, it wouldn't hurt, I'm not going to lie, but really I think it's about finding, the buyers that could fall in love with it. And what we did find is that, people that did fall in love with it, who wanted to purchase it, the banks, and we're hearing this across the board, are really getting slammed at the moment with people trying to lock in loans at the lower interest rate. So it's taking a lot longer. And, auctions don't occur up here that often. So who knows, the outcome might have been different if it was a private sale, but that's not the way the block works because obviously they need an end date for the television show. But look, there were a lot of buyers that really just couldn't get their finances sorted in time because they needed that bank approval. But yes, if there had been 5 Danny Wallaces, then we probably would have had 5 sales.
And just picking up on because of the price point, it is a limited pool of people, particularly in your area. So it can be argued a lot of people in that $4 million price tag like their anonymity. So has that been a factor in terms of working alongside the TV show The Block?
It has. And obviously, as we just mentioned before, that, a lot of these people that are looking for properties up here, they don't want their face to be shown on TV. They do go through the buyer's advocates. If you know what the address is and you know what someone looks like, it can be quite confronting as a purchaser to have that. So 100% that purchasers really would prefer to remain private. They're 100%.
Yeah, so another thing that I found interesting was Danny Wallace. He got into a bit of a two-way with the younger bidder, and then he asked him, are you sure you've got the money? And that drove the price up hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yes, it did. Yes, it was definitely entertaining and is exactly what you look for on a reality show like The Block.
It's that point, isn't it, to be made that you only need two people to go head to head, and that's the sort of thing that can happen. All right, so whereabouts are you going off into the sunset from here?
Back to Dalesford. Back to Dalesford. The show has come to an end, but our listings haven't, and regional Victoria is still booming. We're still seeing great results. And so Natalie and I have a number of properties that we will be working with for the rest of the year.
I think really the only thing that's changed is that for us is that one of our properties is no longer on television. Everything else is just continuing as normal.
Well, thank you, girls, for coming on to the Real Estate Breakfast, because there were a few technical issues that we had which people don't know about, and you've been such great sports to play along with that. And thanks for coming on to the Breakfast Real Estate today.
Thank you so much for having us.
No, thank you.
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.